Nhexus, level 27 upgrade. And there you have it, guys. Traxxas big bore shocks for the front and rear. These were donated to me by Coyote0976. Thanks a ton, man. Now, I've been wanting to get big bore shocks for a long time for the Bandit because, well, check it out. The front and the rear shocks are incredibly exposed, which has always made me a bit nervous. I've never had any problems with it, but with these, I'll be able to push her harder and faster. So enough talk, let's open them up and get them installed. So let's go ahead and get started with the front shocks. Now, they used to come into a nice little box like this, but lately you can find them in these bags. So let's just tear into it and check it out. First off, we have all the spacers and shock braces, followed by Traxxas silicone oil and the front shocks themselves. This one I'm not going to be able to tear open very easily, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut it. Ah, yes. Check that out. Now, the only thing that's missing is the shock springs. I really don't mind because I have the nice purple shock springs I'm just going to be putting onto these. But, oh, look at that, guys. That looks gorgeous. So let's go and open up the rear ones. And we'll just go and pull it open. The funny thing is that they include this nice box, and you'd think something was really important in there. Nothing too much. I mean, it's just the same kind of stuff. I mean, we got the bushings in here, the spacers, the shock spring bracers. Inside here we have more shock oil, so I have a ton of this stuff now. Of course, we have the top for the oil and the shocks themselves. Check that out, guys. Oh, I love big bores. I love them. Simple but very effective. So let's go ahead and get these installed. Alright, so the first thing I need to take care of is the shock oil. For the front shocks, I'm just going to go ahead and use the Traxxas silicone oil they provided me with. The weight of it is 30 or 35, I can't quite remember, but it is a relatively light oil, and since the front of the Bandit is light, this should work just fine. So I'm going to pop off the top and then just fill the shock up a good amount. Now I'm just going to go ahead and pump the piston, make sure I get all the air bubbles out, and fill it up the rest of the way. Once the oil settles in all the way, then I can go ahead and reattach the cap and tighten it down. I don't need to tighten it down too tight, just hand tighten should do. Now, that takes care of the front shocks. For the rear, well, I'm going to need something a bit heavier just because, well, I have an aluminum gearbox. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use 40 weight. This, of course, was also donated to me by Coyote0976. Thanks again, man. But since the stuff is thicker, it is going to take a bit longer for it to settle inside of the shock. Kind of overfilled it, but that's okay. And yeah, I am going to have to pump it around just like I did with the front one, just to make sure that all the air bubbles are out. Once all the air bubbles are out, then I can go ahead and close it up. Alright, now the rear shocks have been taken care of. Next thing to do is I have to take off the old shocks, and they're just held in with a screw on top and a screw on bottom. And like I mentioned, I'm just going to go ahead and pull the shock springs from these shocks and put it on to those. Next up, I need to go ahead and put the rest of the shock together. So what I'm going to need is the top and bottom shock spring brace. We're going to slide the ring on first. Then we're going to put on the shock spring, followed by the bottom shock spring brace. We're just going to go ahead and slide that on, and bam, we are done. Now, one of the nicest things about the aluminum big bore shocks is they do include an aluminum shock cap. Now, they also include this little piece of plastic on the end. What that is a plastic bushing. You're supposed to slide that on right through the top, and you can use a straight screw, and that way you don't have to use the shoulder screws. The nice thing about that is that stainless steel screws can be used, and since you can't really find shoulder screws made out of stainless steel, at least easily or very cheap, it's a nice alternative. But they also highly suggest that you use the plastic bushing because it does help with the performance of the shock. But now that it's all together, let's go ahead and put them all onto Nhexus. And the big bores have been installed, guys, and they look so good. Now, I didn't do a before and after shot just because they look identical to the stock shocks. However, Their performance and durability is so much better. Either way, this is an upgrade that I've been wanting to get for Nhexus for a long time. Thank you very much, Coyote, for making this happen. And that was a level 27 upgrade for Nhexus.